Sure. Streaming. It's been doing kind of a weird thing on Twitter lately where it doesn't actually stream it. Okay, we're good. All right. How are you doing, by the way, Afton? Publicly, how are you doing?
I'm great. No, I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I'm excited for the holidays. I've got a trip planned with my family, so I'm super
Oh,
excited.
good.
How are you
Well, my
doing?
family's doing
I
great.
see you've grown out a beard, and it is quite
Yes.
Disney-esque.
Yes, we haven't had a lot of internet comments on the beard yet. My wife says she likes it, so I feel like I'm entitled to keep it for a little bit longer. And it makes me look a little wiser, I think, with the gray. So I'm going for it for now. Come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Holler. By now, you probably know I'm Justin Canoe with the Holler. We're tnholler.com. We also have all these other hollers all across the state. That's all thanks to your support. So we really appreciate all the support. Keep it coming. The small dollar monthly donations really are what we thrive on, and make it $10 a month or more, and you can get one of these sweet holler hats like this dog has. The other thing I want to mention is we are supported by this lovely woman. I got to clear the banner. This is Lisa Parker. And if you're buying or selling a home in Tennessee, she's been super supportive of the Holler. And I just want to let people know that if you want to support us, support her. AFTYN BEHN is here, a good friend of ours who I'm sure if you follow us at any level, I see Kim throwing up the hearts for AFTYN already. AFTYN, we try to bring her in every once in a while to let us know what's going on in the world. Today, she's going to talk to us specifically about watching out for Republicans taking credit for programs that they voted against. AFTYN, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm super excited. Should I just dig in or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could tee it up by saying, most people I think are aware that Democrats and Biden passed an infrastructure bill that had some bipartisan support not too long ago. I think $8 billion is coming to Tennessee from that. And there was a report by TDOT that Tennessee needs something like $60 billion in repairs. So on the one hand, you've got Marsha Blackburn going to places like Memphis saying, oh, the bridges are falling down, we need help. And then she votes against this thing. And then we also have Build Back Better coming, which will be more money to Tennessee. So what you're trying to sound the alarm about is they're going to vote against these things and then try to take credit for them. How do we look out for that?
Yeah, I think even to move backward a little bit. So, as you know, Biden had two parts to his COVID administration package, right? So we had the relief, and then we have the recovery package, which is Build Back Better. So even before Build Back Better in the House, all of our Republican House members voted against it a few weeks ago. But even before that, we had the American Rescue Plan Act that all of our Republicans voted against. And so what's really exciting now is that the first and second wave of funding from the American Rescue Plan Act, communities and economic development agencies have already submitted plans, and they've received Tennessee received over $33 billion through this plan. So the money's already here. It's already being spent. It's already being plotted as to how they're spending it. So $33 billion over all congressional districts, even though, once again, Fleshman, Desjardins, our cadre of favorites, all voted against it. I also think it's important because Governor Lee tends to, he's really about workforce development and economic and community development. He's always panhandling in rural communities, trying to promote his agenda. And when in reality, the government, the federal government, is the one that's bankrolling a lot of these programs. So Tennessee's Economic and Community Department of Development received over $100 million. The Labor and Workforce Department of Labor and Workforce Development received over $200 million. And so this is money that is already being utilized and spent across the congressional districts. And I think it's important to note right now in this moment, I was doing a bit of a Twitter scan prior to coming on the Holler, but I think it's of the utmost concern that especially you as constituents and especially Democrats and progressives that are these Republican representatives are probably going around, supporting the local project, showing up at ribbon cuttings when the entire time that they voted against it. And I think it's really important. My new organization that I work at, I loved what he said about this, my new executive director, which was that Republicans are better promoting things that they didn't do, and Democrats are better not promoting things they did do.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we'll tell people what the organization is.
Ruralorganizing.org. Yeah.
Okay. I think the backdrop here, to put it in context, is, we've just seen these tornadoes rip through Tennessee and Kentucky, and someone like Rand Paul, who was on the Senate floor railing against voting for help for Puerto Rico and Texas and Florida when the hurricanes hit, saying it's always easy to be generous with other people's money. Well, now that it's Kentucky and his state, of course he wants the federal aid. Of course he wants the help. So I think we see that often with Republicans, where they're against it when it doesn't impact them, but then the minute their own communities need it,
Mhm.
they're for it. And that's sort of a microcosm of what we're seeing with these bills. Does that feel right?
Yeah, that feels exactly right. And it's just going to continue as I said, these dollars are spent. If we are able to move the Build Back bipartisan Build Back Better plan over the finish line, that we will see another wave of Republicans taking credit for things they didn't do. And especially in a state like Tennessee, my organization, ruralorganizing.org, has done extensive polling and research around this. But the problem is that Democrats in rural communities and in states like Tennessee have nothing to show what they've done, right?
Right.
And there's a stigma against federal politicians as well that they don't do anything. And so with this incredible influx of federal aid coming to Tennessee, that Democrats really can pivot and take credit for the projects, the material gains within their communities that are happening. So hey, guess what? Like the last street on my holler now has broadband. Guess who did that? Democrats.
Right. And
You know,
how do we get them to that point where like they feel comfortable having that conversation where people in those communities are hit in the face with the fact that yes, it was Democrat. I mean, I think you're so right what you said, which is, on the one hand, Republicans take credit for things that they don't do, but the Democrats always fail to remind people and run on the things that they do. And it ends up feeling like sort of general platitudes rather than specific, here's how we helped your life. So like, what steps need to be taken to, I guess, prepare candidates as messengers and,
yeah.
to get the party and the caucuses on the same page when it comes to that?
Yeah. So the first step, and once again, this is part of my role at ruralorganizing.org, will be creating these materials that then candidates can utilize as they run in 2022. But first and most importantly, I think that we have access to an incredible repository of documents that can really benefit candidates, such as each economic and community development regional agency in the state of Tennessee. I think there's one for every congressional district. Does these strategic plans, right? Where they build out a 5 to 10 year plan, they do an in depth analysis. These assessments cost over $250,000. And guess what? They're publicly available. So any candidate, especially running at the congressional level, can look at these agencies' documents, get a hold of it, see the top 10 issues that are affecting the community. There's also, and I can drop the link, but www.usspending.gov is the current database where you can see where money is being spent in each congressional district. And to sum it up, I think ruralorganizing.org has found the more local you run, the more likely that is to inoculate against the big national issue, identity issues, such as, that we've seen critical race theory, for example, like what happened in Virginia. But you're able, when you run on hyper localized issues, you're able to inoculate against hyper nationalization, but you're also able to show, hey, guess what? You see that bridge over there? Like we built that. I was in supportive of it. And then you also say, hey, guess what? The Republican voted against that. And that's my opponent.
Right. It also feels like getting out there so people know who you are, like showing up to help in a real way when it's not about campaigning. That feels like a way to use your word inoculate against some of this stuff also. So, any opportunity to get out there into the community and actually like help in these situations, show up like that guy Jim Finch did to feed people
Mhm.
in Mayfield. I guess he's from Clarksville, I just found out. Do things that actually put you out in the community so that people, when they throw the bullshit at you, people can be like, no, I know that guy. That's just not true. Or I met that guy, or he was out there doing this then and didn't wait until October for a November election. So, I just feels like getting out there and showing, that you have a heart for this stuff is really important. And there's no shortage of opportunities to do that, especially in our state.
Right. And I think, and complementary to that is also if you are seeing local projects taking hold as a constituent, as a voter, I am pleading with Tennessee Democrats that you should start organizing now. And what you can be doing is any funding projects that you see, especially in rural communities, that your local reporters are covering, your county commissioners, your mayors, that you are, you are engaged in either writing letters to the editor and making sure that people know that Democrats claim credit for it, going on your local rural radio station to
Right.
talk about it. So I think I really want to task Tennessee Democrats in particular that the burden can't fall on people like me and Justin. Yes, this is our jobs is to get this information out there, but we really need you to support us in taking credit for this, especially if you live in a rural community in Tennessee, because I guarantee you, not only as I've heard from some of our state legislators that that Governor Lee and his administration is trying to block aid to go to some of these areas so that Democrats can't claim it. But the money that is going, Democrats need to be at the forefront of saying, hey, that was us. We did that. And if you vote for me, I will vote for programs just like this.
Yeah, there was an article not long ago, I think by Kelman. I forget what exactly it was, but Governor Lee attributed some funding that came into like the block grant that like doesn't even exist. They're going to find ways to, take credit for this money when there's no actual justification for it. I see Stephen Puckett saying also public comments sections of local government meetings. That's great. I mean, I can't
Yes.
tell you how many times we've had viral videos come from school board meetings, city council meetings, county commissions, like when there's cameras there and let us know that it happened. Like that's our specialty, is pulling those videos and making sure that they get shared wide. And those are opportunities for local people to go and speak passionately, like perform it, give a speech, take the opportunity to do it and make your point in a clear, concise, emotional way. And we'll try to help flip that up. I see Bonnie saying Americans need marketing messages in bite-sized pieces. The messaging coming from each side, one is buzzwords and phrases and comprehensive, thoughtful stuff. On the other side, it's time to modernize the marketing message. It's true. I mean, on some level, I think that's easier said than done, Afton. It's like,
Mhm.
when you do have complex issues, it's hard to boil it down to like, freedom, like they do on their side, or, whatever, don't tread on me. But we got to figure out a way to do it, because people really do sort of ingest the smaller bite-sized stuff more, and it's stickier.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I pulled up Steve Bullock, former governor of Montana, wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, really pressing that Democrats are going to lose rural America if they keep speaking in platitudes, et cetera. I'd love to read what he said because it's exactly what you're talking about. It meant talking about universal pre-K not as an abstract policy goal, but being essential for our children, for keeping our parents in the workforce. It meant talking about climate change just not as a crisis, but as an opportunity to create good jobs, preserve our outdoor heritage, and as a promise not to leave our communities behind. And so I really think that I absolutely agree with you. The way you message these things, it can't be, on our platitude high horse and sanctimonious. It has to be to the nitty gritty kitchen table. I know that's been utilized a lot,
Yeah.
but really speaking to like how is this going to put money in your family member's pocket? How is this going to improve the quality of life for this person? And you've got to speak to it like that, right?
Yeah, and I think another article that I don't have in front of me, but it was about a guy named Will Bunch, who writes for, I think, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and he talked about how one of the things that has really been under attack is the idea of the common good, of the public good. They assault it as socialism and basically try to create a situation where anytime we talk about us being in this thing together, it's socialism. And that's really been an assault on the public good. The very notion of the public
Mhm.
good has been under attack. I think that's important, especially in a state like ours, where actually I think there is a heart for the public good and community, like reclaiming that and saying, no, we actually do want to fight for the public good. You can call it socialism, but in a moment like this, where people's houses are gone and a tornado has come through and killed hundreds of people, like, we need the common good. So let's value the common good before these things happen and not after. And I think that's something worth fighting for. So just that notion of the common good, I think, is something that's important to reclaim.
Yes. And I would also add, I think, reclaiming big government.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's the
Or
common
good
good and big
government.
government. Right, good government. And I think
Yeah.
that we've got an exemplary, um, illustration of what big government can do in the form of the Tennessee Valley Authority that electrified an entire region and raised
Right.
people out of poverty. And so there is a precedent for big government
Right.
in our state, in our region. And I think we really need to take that back. And especially with the tornadoes, you see that, yes, the only, mutual aid can only go so far, right? And neighbors helping neighbors. But in order to really rebuild, you have to have investment from the federal government. And so I think coupling, yeah, trying to figure out how you're balancing those narratives are really, really important.
And think about what really is big government, right? Big government is, oh, you've been raped and we're going to force you to have that baby. Big government is, no, you can't have medicinal marijuana, even though, much of the country already has it. Big government is, no, you can't marry that person that you love because I'm going to tell you who you can and can't love in this world. Like, that's big government. So even though they claim they're not for big government, they absolutely are. And even though they claim they're for freedom, they're really not. Like, the freedom to love who you want to love, the freedom to ingest what you want to, like the freedom to, have healthcare when you get sick. Like, these freedom and big government, all these words, like, they're flipped. There's nothing conservative about tearing down the environment. Like, they've just claimed all these words that I think we need to try to redefine, because they actually are extremely hypocritical on all of this stuff.
Yeah. And I love that. I mean, it's like, why are you, Mark Green, why are you even in government? Like, if you hate it so much, get out.
Right.
Like, no one's
Right.
asking you to stay there. Marsha Blackburn, get out. I mean, it's just, and I tweeted about this earlier a few weeks ago, but it's comical to me. Like, whenever there's really great policy coming out of the Biden administration, that Marsha Blackburn just goes down this Chinese rabbit hole
Oh,
about, like,
yeah.
I'm like, is she only reading Chinese news? I mean,
Yeah.
really?
It's terrible. I mean, China and immigration, and now they're beating everybody over the head with the inflation thing, which is a global phenomenon, not just American. Yeah, it's all about fear, and I think
Yes.
Democrats are, just to bring it back to where we are here. Democrats are, they want to govern from a place of helping people, and Republicans want to govern from a place of scaring people. And I think it's really important that we do take credit for the victories, because there actually have been some, and and not be afraid to speak up. And so I appreciate what you're doing. What's the website again, so people know?
Yeah, www.ruralorganizing.org. And we've got a ton of resources on there, lessons learned, polling that can be really helpful. But I really challenged candidates running in 2022 that you've got to go hyper local, take credit for the wins, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, go to organizing.org, and hopefully there can be some, toolkits for people to get information there, so that you can have those conversations with the people around you. Because, I'd say on some level we're guilty of preaching to the choir here at the holler, but the choir needs to have the information too, so that they can go out and talk to the people around them. So I think there is value to preaching to the choir, is what I would argue back. And, together, hopefully we can all have the information to go have those tougher discussions. After, thanks for doing what you're doing. Stay in touch. Come back soon.
All right. Bye. Thanks, y'all.
Take care.